How a street kid saved President Ibrahim Traoré from a coup. What if the child you ignorantly stepped over today held the key to the survival of a nation tomorrow? What if revolutions didn't begin in parliaments or barracks, but in the quiet rage of abandoned souls who've tasted the concrete with their bare backs and whispered, "Secrets to the wind"? You've heard tales of generals, ministers, and foreign agents, but no one told you about him. The invisible boy with no name, no home, and yet the pulse of fate beating in his chest. The question is not how he did it, but why no one saw it coming. History will never confess its lies willingly. It prefers statues over shadows, medals over motives. But Ibrahim Traoré, yes, that Ibrahim, he knew where to look. He knew revolutions do not knock. They slither. And on a night drenched in betrayal and gunmetal, salvation came not from the elite guard, nor from intelligence briefings, but from the eyes of a ghost child who had already died 1,000 times on the streets. You think you know who saves a president. But tell me, when was the last time you questioned who writes survival into the margins of power? They called it coincidence. They called it rumor. But deep beneath the headlines and official statements, there lies a heartbeat that refuses to be silenced. This story is not about a coup, it is about a covenant. Not forged in ink and law, but in hunger, in instinct, in something older than politics, older than fear. And when that boy appeared, uninvited at the edge of destiny, no one asked why he was there. They only followed his silence like a command, because some silences are louder than screams. You are not ready for the truth, not because it is hard to accept, but because it requires you to see the world with different eyes, eyes that can decode symbols where others see noise. This is not a story you watch. This is a story you survive. And as the threads begin to unravel, you will find yourself questioning every assumption you have about loyalty, power, and the invisible architects of fate. Why was the president alone? Why did no alarm ring? And who really triggered the fall of the traitors? Stay, not because you are curious, but because something inside you already knows. You feel it, that electric tremor in your chest, that itch of revelation scratching beneath your ribs. You've been lied to, not once, but repeatedly. And in the next few minutes, layer by layer, mask by mask, we will rip the fabric open. Just remember, this is not just about Ibrahim Traoré. It's about you. And the truth you're about to hear will either free you or haunt you forever. He had no name, only nicknames that clung like open wounds. They called him Dust, Shadow, Nobody. But that day, something ancient pulsed in his chest. Something no radar could detect, no camera could capture, no general would suspect. Because only those who live on the margins can hear the noises the world ignores. He heard footsteps that weren't meant to echo, smelled scents that didn't belong to an ordinary night. It wasn't a premonition, it was a calling. As if destiny whispered into his ear words that burned hotter than the cold of the pavement. The boy was not a hero, he was consequence. A side effect of a world that insists on masking injustice. While the powerful slept on mattresses stuffed with strategies and false alliances, he walked through the wreckage of the city like an ancient spirit, with eyes that had seen everything, and yet had never been seen. You think you know what intelligence is? You think protection comes from weapons and codes? Traoré knew otherwise, because when everything collapsed, when the walls crumbled from within, it was the boy's gaze that guided him, a gaze that said, "I know this darkness better than your enemies ever will." And in that silent exchange, history changed its course, without asking permission, without leaving a signature. They say the president survived by luck, but luck is the name the weak give to what they don't understand. The truth is, the boy, shaped by hunger, forged in abandonment, had become a censor of deception. He read the world through its cracks, decoded intentions in the cadence of footsteps, in the rhythm of breath. And that night, when he crossed Traoré's path, he didn't ask for help, he offered it, with gestures, with silences, as if to say, "I know where betrayal sleeps." And in that instant all theories crumbled, because it was no longer about government or politics or power. It was about pure survival, raw instinct, the alliance between the forgotten and the one who dared to remember. The boy led the president through paths that didn't exist on any map, guided him through alleys that reeked of abandonment but concealed safety, showed him where cameras could not see, where traitors wouldn't dare look. And Traoré, the leader of an entire nation, followed, not out of lack of options, but out of blind faith, the kind of faith only those who have lost everything still carry. It's strange to think that the salvation of a republic emerged from the gutter, but that is the truth no one wants to tell, because it humiliates, it dismantles, it reveals that systems are fragile, and that the invisible see more than all the satellites in the world. The dawn did not bring relief. It brought weight, because now the president knew his throne was stained not with blood, but with silence. The boy never asked for reward, not a name, not credit. He simply vanished, as if he had never existed. But Traoré knew, and every time the system threatens to collapse again, he remembers the true shield is not made of walls. It is made of eyes that have learned to see in the dark. That's where the real revolution lives, not in squares, but in wounded bodies that still believe it's worth saving a man, not for what he represents, but for what he might still become. Can you feel it? That knot that won't come undone, that shiver you can't explain? It doesn't come from fear. It comes from the memory of something you too forgot. Because all of us somewhere inside have once been that boy, invisible, wounded, watching a world that doesn't see us. But maybe, just maybe, we're also the only ones who can save it. The question is, can you still see in the dark? Some stories don't end. They simply transform into silence within us. You watched a nameless boy walk through the darkness and change the fate of a nation. But perhaps what was truly revealed here wasn't about him, nor about Traoré. Maybe what this invisible thread touched was something of yours, something ancient, asleep, waiting for a memory it didn't know it had forgotten. Because deep down we all carry the wounded child and the lonely leader. The secret is recognizing when they meet inside us. The streets remain the same. The dust still dances beneath the feet of those no one notices. But now, you see, and once seen, you cannot return to the comfort of blindness. Because the true revolution doesn't need rifles. It begins the moment someone chooses to see the invisible. You heard the story of how power was saved by fragility, but maybe now you understand it was fragility that had been hiding power all along. The world insists on hiding its guardians in alleyways, but truth, when whispered by burning eyes, always finds a way. Perhaps the question is no longer how the boy saved the president, but why so many ignore the saviors who walk among us, silent, dirty, sacred. Yes, the boy disappeared, but not as an ending. He dissolved into time as a symbol, a warning, a promise. And every time the system fails, every time betrayal whispers through golden halls, remember, there are eyes in the shadows waiting. Not for glory, but for justice. Not for praise, but for meaning. And all they need is a moment. The echo now within you is choice. The choice to forget or remember. To keep following safe maps, or to listen to the whispers from the margins. Because sometimes, the only way to save the world is to hear those who've never had a voice. It's accepting that a hero may come barefoot, hungry, and still carry within them the heartbeat of 1,000 silent victories. You didn't leave this encounter untouched. Something has been lit, and that fire, even if small, already knows the way. If something here touched you, don't let it fade. Like, comment, share. Not as someone consuming a video, but as someone sustaining a flame. Subscribe, not to follow, but to become part of a movement that doesn't make headlines, part of a collective memory that is slowly waking up. And when the world darkens again, because it will, may it be you who sees first, because now you know the most dangerous eyes are the ones that learned to see in the dark.